Okay, hello, chess players. Today I'm going to talk about something that's not going to be fun to talk about, but I think it needs to be talked about. Um, Recently, Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky passed away. He passed away at 29. Um, he was a little bit younger than me. I'm 43, so I'm a different generation than Daniel Naroditsky. Daniel came up. In the generation right after mine, and that generation had quite a few strong chess players compared to my generation, and they're very young, very talented, just absolutely amazing chess players. Daniel himself was an absolutely amazing chess player, but more importantly, he was an absolutely amazing person and an absolutely amazing human being. Um, so what I want to talk about in this video is a lot of it is going to be about the pressure of playing chess professionally, but I also want to talk about why I walked away from chess, and I also want to talk about why the chess community as a whole is truly a really great community, and why chess itself as a whole is truly a great game. So I don't want to, cast any dispersions on it, but I do want people to kind of understand what people go through, and I want people to understand um, how much pressure and stress can exist within that world that is very, very different from the real world. And I have lived in both, for most of my adult life. I became a chess master back in the early 2000s. And I played and taught and coached chess professionally, and in some cases just played professionally, pretty much between the years of about 2000 and 2007 or 8, depending on how you look at it. I gave up tournament chess completely back in 2018. I met Daniel Naroditsky for the first time when he was 12 years old. I think he was 12. He might have been 11. I'm not actually 100% sure. It was at the U.S. Championship qualifier, and again, I'm not 100% sure on the year. It was either 2007, possibly 2008, but it was somewhere in there. And I had a last round game against Sam Shankland. And actually, for the majority of the tournament, me and Daniel were playing on boards that were next to each other. Because of course, Daniel at the time was just an incredibly talented junior player, and he was in the running to qualify for the U.S. Championship that year. And it would have been an impressive qualification. He would have gotten into the U.S. Championship at 12. And going into the last round, I was playing against Sam Shanklin, who at the time, by the way, I know it sounds like, wow, you're playing against Sam, who was a grandmaster. At the time, he was not a grandmaster, and I actually thought I got kind of lucky on the pairing. I thought, well, if I beat Sam, I've got. I was having a good tournament at the time. I'd only lost one game to Joe Bradford, and of course, I'd already decided at that point that I was going to be going into another profession. So this was kind of my last chance to qualify for the one tournament that I never got a chance to play in, which was the U.S. Championship. And so going into the last round, I'm playing against Sam Shanklin. Winning would, at the very least, I would end with a good score, but possibly put me in the running. And Daniel was in basically the same situation, and we both lost. I lost my last game against Sam Shanklin, and I'll just kind of show kind of a little bit of what that game was. It was this position. Um, and this will become relevant a little bit later when I talk about the next time I met Danya again a couple years later. But the game against Sam went down this path in the Fischer Sozin. And essentially, what happened is I played a line that was recommended by Fischer, basically Castle's Queenside. This was recommended in Fischer's book, My 60 Memorable Games. And of course, you can see the computer assessment is, advantage black, solidly in the advantage black area. And we didn't know that back then. And You know, Sam played the correct move. He played B5, and yeah, as you can see, everybody that has played in this position has lost, and myself included. And actually, I think Sam did a video on this opening where he cited our game as one of the games that is essentially a refutation of the Castles Queenside line. Um, so I lost my game against Sam, and Daniel lost his game as well. I'm not sure who Daniel was playing. I could look it up, but it doesn't matter much for purposes of the story. But needless to say, he was absolutely heartbroken. And when I walked out of the tournament hall and I walked out to the parking lot, I saw Daniel in the parking lot with his dad. And Daniel was just, he was crying. He was like in tears. And because it was an important game. It was emotional for him. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, I lost my game too, and I want to cry too." I knew that that game was going to be, maybe my last chance. And I think he understood what I was getting at. That he was going to have more opportunities, but I probably wouldn't. And he understood that. And he smiled a little bit, and he actually made me feel a little bit better about my situation as well. And that was his personality, even back then, even at 12. He was very he made you feel seen. He was very in tune to the emotions of other people. He was a very sensitive person and just a very wonderful person to be around, even back then. Even back then when his emotions were crushed, as soon as I told him that I felt like I wanted to cry, he immediately switched gears. He wanted to make me feel better. Now he wasn't upset anymore. Um, just what an absolutely amazing person. So the second time I met Daniel Naroditsky was there was maybe 2 years later. It was in the actual U.S. Championship, which he had qualified for that year. It was, I think, in 2011. It was either 2010 or 2011. So this was his game against Ivanov, and I think my database has it down as being played in 2011. So we're going to go with 2011. Um, so I showed up to the U.S. Championship, and of course I wasn't playing in the main event, but I was going to play in the U.S. Blitz Championship that year. Um, so I showed up and I was playing in the Blitz Championship where I beat John Elvis in round one of that tournament, and he's a grandmaster. And I was a very very good Blitz player at the time, and I was like regularly beating guys that were like grandmasters at least in Blitz. So I beat John Elvis in that, and then I also played a whole bunch of pickup games in the St. Louis Chess Club against Ben Feingold, and we actually split. I think Ben Feingold just barely got the better of me. I think we played like 10 or 11 games, and Ben Feingold won a little more than half, but uh, other, strong players and grandmasters were watching that, and of course they didn't 100% know who I was at the time because I'd stepped away from the game quite a bit by that point. And Nakamura wanted to play me immediately after I got done playing Ben because he was like, well, he just watched me beat Ben like four or five times out of a dozen games. And I'm not saying I got the better of Ben. Ben did win that match, but I won quite a few games. And so Nakamura wanted to get in and play me, and then Nakamura he played me a game, and he beat me the first game, but it was incredibly close, and the position was very complex, and he didn't like that, so he wanted to immediately play another game, and so then we played game number two, and that was solid. Like he beat me in a really solid showing. And then I wanted, of course, to play another game because I didn't want to get wiped out, and Nakamura, he was like, no, I don't want to. So Nakamura won that match 2-0. But anyways, this segues into where I ran into Naroditsky for the second time. Naroditsky was playing this game against Ivanov, which interestingly enough was going down the exact same path or close to the exact same path of my game against Sam Shankland. It was basically the same opening. So I observed the game, I watched the game, and I walk up of course, right after the game was done, and then the three of us, me, Daniel Naroditsky, and Ivanov, just start analyzing this game to death right there in the post-mortem, right there in the St. Louis Chess Club. So the three of us are analyzing this game like crazy. And of course, they're playing the new kind of modern main line for the Fischer Sozin with knight d7, knight c5, which of course I was very interested in because I had to adopt this, after my loss against Sam, and really everyone had to adopt this. Um, but I remember, keep in mind, Daniel lost this game. And when we were analyzing, he was just so energetic and so enthusiastic and actually just happy just to go over the lines and to learn stuff about the position. Even if the position ended up being better for black, he really didn't care. It was just, he was all about the chess. Like, it didn't really bother him very much at the time that he had lost the game. He was more fascinated by the positions on the board. One of the things that we spent a lot of time looking at was this variation that, of course, isn't covered here. Like nobody's played it. It's after castles, castles. You see everybody's either played like king h1 or rook ad1. And actually, even if you turn on the engine, they give king h1. One of the things that we talked about post mortem was this variation with fe6, fe6, knight f5, the complications of which get pretty wild, like especially after bishop d8 and queen g3. And we kind of had a blast going over all of these complications in the postmortem. And of course, going over these variations, stuck with me years later. I've even played this personally in tournaments, even though you can see it doesn't show up in the Masters database at all. And I've played it in Blitz chess as well. But yeah, I remember, that interaction, just being a very, very solid interaction. And I remember it, being, just basically his love for the game, just shining through when we were, going over these positions. So that was around 2011. I personally played my last tournament uh, in about 2018. It's when I finally completely stepped away from the tournament side of chess. So the one thing that I want people to understand um, about the inside of the chess world is it's a very tight knit and a very great community to be a part of. When you start out kind of playing chess and you're good at it, especially when you're like a young junior player, and you start moving up, one of the things that you start looking for at a certain point is because that experience itself can sometimes be very isolating. One of the things that you're looking for is sort of that camaraderie, and you want to find a group of people that are like you that you belong to. And when you finally get to those highest levels of chess, when you're in that top, 0.1% of tournament chess players, that camaraderie is very much there. You're welcomed into that group of people. You're welcomed into that community, and people get along amazingly well. Um, it's just like it's like a family. It's just an absolutely amazing community to be a part of. And I think everybody that's ever been a part of that community has just been felt very blessed to be a part of it. And there is just absolutely nothing more fun. Like that 2011 U.S. Championship. I got to play blitz chess against Ben Feingold. I got to play blitz chess against Hikaru Nakamura. I got to analyze with Daniel Naroditsky and Ivanov. I got to play in the U.S. Blitz Championship beat Grandmaster, um, where I beat Grandmaster John Elvis, and I think I lost to Irina Krush, and I think it was actually no, was it Irina Krush or somebody else? No, okay, but I did lose some games as well, and I can't I can't remember all the people I lost to. But anyways, and after the tournament was over, I got to have a beer with Maurice Ashley in the bar, and we talked for quite a while. And I even got to participate in some of the commentary for that event. From the spectator crowd. I gave some variations, and they ran some lines. And it was a whole lot of fun. Oh, and also Yasser Serouan told a lot of stories. If you ever go to these things, Yasser Serouan just tells all these stories like crazy, and he's just so fun to listen to. He Just nonstop tells all these stories. And I sat next to him on the bus, and it was me, Yasser Seirawan, and Daniel Naroditsky. We were on the bus, and it was just like he was telling stories, and just everybody was listening. Uh, and that's kind of what was going on. Um, so yeah, these things are so much fun, and it's such a tight community. But the other side of that, what people don't see, is how much work it takes to compete at that level and stay at that level. Like even just my level, even just the master level. I'm not even a grandmaster. I didn't even try to become an IM. I could have gotten my FM title if I was willing to spend the money and travel. But again, I basically gave up chess for another profession back in '08. And as far as pushing for IM or GM, I'm going to get into why I didn't even try in a minute. But I think it's a pretty universal thing that happens is the cost of it. Not just the monetary cost, which can be very very real. Uh, it's the also the amount of time and energy that you have to put into it. When you study chess, you're studying obsessively. You're studying, 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. When you're playing tournaments, oftentimes you're not sleeping. Oftentimes you have to be reminded to eat. You have to exercise on a regular basis. I used to exercise for at least 45 minutes to an hour a day. When I played chess for a living, I was probably in some of the best physical shape of my life, believe it or not. It wasn't until after I exited chess that I put on maybe an extra 10, 15 pounds, maybe a little more. But believe it or not, like just the tournament chess life and stuff like that is physically actually very exhausting. And you're also trying to exercise so that you can, stay awake. And then you're also studying chess, 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. And then on top of that, you have to not just deal with your peers, like other chess masters and other, strong players that for the most part think like you and have the same problems and are very understanding. But you also have to deal with a lot of regular people, including, but not limited to, tournament organizers who oftentimes are just, that sometimes they're chess players, sometimes they're not, sometimes they sort of play chess, sometimes they don't. And you're constantly afraid, like even if the organizers happen to be great people, you're constantly under all this pressure to have good interactions with them because maybe there's only 3 or 4 organizers in the entire area, or maybe there's only like for big international events, maybe there's only a handful of organizers or organizations that run those events, period. Or when it comes to sponsors, really, like in the chess world, maybe there's only 2 or 3. And if you accidentally say the wrong thing or have a bad interaction, you might not be able to play chess anymore. Maybe even worldwide, and it could all just happen just because you were extremely tired and you'd been playing chess or studying chess for 20 hours and you just had one bad interaction with a regular guy that's just, living the normal life, working a 9 to 5, and they're expecting you to be on top of your game, not just in chess but also socially, and you're concerned that just one offhand comment. So there's all this social pressure as well. um but then the other side of this, and I think this was something that affected Daniel a lot, and it affected me, and it affected every other player that I know of, is there's a lot of pressure. On top of the camaraderie that you get from the other chess players, there's also a lot of pressure, from the other chess players, not just to perform and to prove that you can perform, but also you're looking to your peers and you're also looking to these people that you idolized when you're growing up to for approval. That's, I mean, it's just like with any other sport. If you idolized Michael Jordan and you got into the NBA, you'd want an attaboy from Michael Jordan. If you idolized Tiger Woods and you became a professional golfer, you'd like Tiger Woods to think of you as a good person. This is just natural. Um, I remember uh, when John Bartholomew started getting really good, and he played in the World Open, and I want to say it was maybe 2003, and it might have been before that, but he was younger than me. John's younger than me. I want to say by at least 4 years. But I was an adult at the time, and John wasn't. And he had just gotten two draws in a row against two very strong grandmasters. One of them was Joel Benjamin. And Joel Benjamin got so angry about the draw because Joel didn't want to draw against somebody lower rated, period. And of course, Joel is a human being just like the rest of us. So he got really mad and he got up and he yelled at John for not playing for a win. Because obviously if John played for a win, then Joel would have had a chance to play for a win. That's the real reason he wanted him to play for a win. Um, but John had an advantage, but he forced a perpetual, and that's why Joel was upset. And Joel got up and yelled at John, and after the game was over, John was shaking and he was visibly upset. And I walked up to him after the game and I said, John, I said, do not worry about these guys and do not worry about what they think. I said, I know Joel Benjamin, we both know that the guy's a former U.S. champion and he's a grandmaster, but he's also a human being. The guy's a boob, is what I told him. And John laughed, and it made him feel better. And that's kind of what we have to remember about these guys is they're human beings. They're fully capable of acting like boobs themselves. They're fully capable of, succumbing to all of the same pressures that the rest of us succumb to. But it's still very difficult to separate that. And when you're in that chess community and you're dealing with all of these pressures, all these different kinds of pressure, the pressure to perform, the pressure to interact with people socially, the pressure that you feel from your peers, and then the pressure that you feel from, the people that you idolize. And then you combine that with the work regimen and the lack of sleep and the no time off, and it just gets to be too much. And that is basically the main reason that I walked away from trying to continue to play professional chess. The real story about when I finally decided to call it quits was when I was playing in an invitational tournament in Oklahoma and I was playing alongside Alexander Shabalov. And they were having like a free pizza event at the tournament, and Shabalov had snuck in before anybody else and grabbed some free pizza, and I made a joke about it, and people laughed, and but then I realized it hit me. This guy is the US champion, and I know how much work he put into chess. And at the time, I think he was making maybe $60,000 a year. So essentially, he was struggling. And I'm sitting there as this semi-professional chess master, making, about half that at the time. And I'm thinking, okay, so if I keep doing this, if I keep burning myself out, if I keep putting myself through all of these different kinds of emotional stress, I'm not even going to have financial security. So on top of all of this other stress, we're going to add financial stress. And it was that moment that I changed my life focus. And I decided that my life focus was going to be becoming financially stable and trying to start a family. And that my focus was going to be on my family and being financially stable. And it wasn't no longer going to be about chess or chasing titles or recognition. Um, that exit from chess into the regular world made me realize how much easier and how much less pressure people have to deal with in the regular world. There's also a lot less job satisfaction in the regular world. In the regular world, if you lose your job, you can just walk away and get another one. If you, I mean, you can't ever really walk away from chess. Even me, for a guy like me, saying I walked away from chess, it's like saying you walked away from music. You're going to love music your entire life. It doesn't matter whether you're playing professionally or not. I mean, I still have this channel and I still play Blitz online nonstop. You don't ever truly walk away from it. Uh, But in life, you can walk away from so many things because there is not that attachment. Not having that attachment is an enormous amount of freedom, and it's an enormous amount of stress that gets taken away. It's just like you can work a job and then you don't like it anymore. You walk away, you work another job. It's no big deal. Um, and also, when you're a professional chess player, and also when you're a child prodigy like Daniel, and I was considered a child prodigy as well, you put pressure on yourself to perform. And the pressure that you put on yourself to perform is way more than the pressure anybody else puts on you to perform. The standard that you hold yourself to is so much higher than anybody realizes. And chess players, especially child prodigies that continue to play into their 20s, uh, you go through like these mini life crises while you do it. Um, I had a life crisis like every year from like the time I was 18 to the time I was 26. Where am I at with my chess? Am I where I wanted to be? When I was 7 years old, I said I wanted to be the world champion by the time I was 21. That did not happen. you know, and every year it was just like this huge life crisis. Like 18, where am I at? 19, where am I at? I guarantee Daniel went through the same thing. His goals for himself were a lot more than the goals that anyone else had set for him. And yeah, you just got to understand that. And you got to understand that's the pressure. It's social pressure. It's pressure from your peers, pressure from the people that you look up to. It's the amount of work and the amount of energy that goes into it. And then it's your own personal expectation of yourself, which is usually totally unrealistic. And you can't see all of that until you can step away from it and realize that nobody else has to deal with this much pressure. And you put financial pressure on top of that, and nobody else is dealing with that. Now, all that being said, for most of the people in the chess community, the trade-off is worth it. I mean, you get to do what you love for a living. If you loved music and you got to do music for a living, there are things that come with that. Doing what you love to do for a living is great on its own. It's great. Um, but there's also a lot of pressure. And I just think, when you interact with people like Daniel or any of these professional players. I don't care who it is. I don't care if you think that they're just this terrible person to be around, if you think they're just horribly arrogant people, or if you think that they say things that are terribly inappropriate. Please keep in mind that they are human beings and they are under an enormous amount of pressure that you probably do not understand. Please be nice to them. Even if you think they're being rude by your standards, please be nice to them. You will never understand the amount of pressure that they are going through until you have been there yourself. Um, so I don't really know how to end this video. It's already gone on for more than 28 minutes. A little bit of a lecture, a little bit of a story. Uh, the little bit that I knew Daniel and the little bit that I saw of him, he was genuinely the nicest person I've ever met. The chess world is not as good today as it was when he was around, and he will be missed. Um, yeah, so that's it. Uh, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Sorry for the long video. 29 minutes long. Okay. Okay, thank you for watching.